Takei, the most ridiculous shit live on the planet segment. And let's start with this one here.
Oh,
yeah. So it's mini tweets. I think he's been on a rant. They're saying, hey, man, I'm here to prove my shit liberty here. I'm going to go on this rant. But go ahead, Nick.
So the way I'm going to preface this segment by saying this because I told you guys the United States is the most propagandized country in the world, right? So when we have anti-third party propaganda and nonstop pro-war propaganda for CNN and MSNBC, what do you guys think is the result of that? In regard to this tweet, I showed you guys how Joe Stein hit 7% in the polls at one point. And after that, the media freaked out. They went from you would see Joe Stein in a CNN interview. I don't know if you guys remember that, but you used to see that. Then they immediately stopped that. It was told by the bosses, don't put her on ever again because she was great. You guys see her on our show, great at destroying neoliberalism and listen to evil myths. Then they attacked third parties, and now look at the result. I'll pass you so you can read the tweet so we can read it. But this is the anti-third party, anti-democratic views that is prevalent among the liberal class. We have two parties where the people support the parties, and we're talking about 45% of the population here, are mindless drones. Absolutely mindless drones. So let's get to we can read tweet.
Let me read this tweet. So this one, so I got maybe 2 or 3. I know I got 2. It might be a third tweet we get to of his. This will be really quick, sort of segment. But George says this. This is the tweet that we're going to discuss first, and then there's a Ukraine. So we're going to start with Cornel West, then get to the Ukraine. I remember the 2000 election. There were enough votes for Ralph Nader to hand the election to George W. Bush. I remember the 2016 election. There were enough votes for Jill Stein to hand the election to Donald Trump. In 2024, the Green Party is running Cornel West. Cornel spelled wrong there. Let's not repeat this history, friends. Your vote is not a marriage. You're not choosing a life partner. I don't know if you've seen the marriage divorce rates, sir, but they're not choosing life partners in marriages either, sir. Your vote is not a marriage. You're not choosing a life partner. It's a chess move for what's best for the country and the world. And I want to start talking about. I made it a point to myself to start talking about this more. Because the way the conversation is talked about, and George is proof with George, is as if it's facts already in evidence. It's already a given. They're all on the same team to keep Trump out of White House. What? When did we all sign up for this?
That's not my goal.
I'm on the team of keeping both red and blue out. I don't know what you're talking about, but they don't even. It's an assumption in the conversation. They did it with an interview with Cornel West. It's just, what happens? You see what Jill Stein did. What happens if you do? Do you have a concern? My response, I love his response, but I would have added, why are you assuming that everybody's goal is to only keep Trump out? Yeah, that's what your whole framing of everything is. Go ahead. It sounded like you were going to chime in. Go ahead.
Yeah, so our only goal should be to improve the material conditions of ourselves, our family, and our neighbors. Correct. So people like George Takei and professional managerial suburban liberals, they don't have material concern. Let me rephrase that, actually. They do have material concerns, and that's why they focus on this instead. That's why they want to distract workers, because they don't want workers to focus on the material concerns. So I'll actually frame that differently. But the overall point I'm making is that if you vote for a Democrat, if you vote for Joe Biden, and your life does not get better, if your life gets worse, if your material conditions do not improve after you vote for a politician, if you continue to vote for them, that is wasting your vote. Fam, you understand what I mean? Your only interest is to improve your material conditions. So if you're voting for politicians that do not do that, that is a waste of your vote. Pretended the exact opposite. They say if you vote for third party, if you vote for Dr. Cornel West, if you don't vote for a politician who don't win, apparently, you wasted your vote. What is the value of your vote if you give your vote to a person who does not have the interest of your family at heart? They are not advancing your political interests. That is literally the definition of wasting a vote and wasting your time. You took your time off to vote against your own interest.
Right.
You took PTO time to vote. You woke up. You didn't take your kid to school that day. You had someone else do it so you could vote. You made some sort of sacrifice in your personal life to vote for someone who did not have your material interests in mind. How does that make sense? That's the argument that we make, because we say all the time, when you vote in this country that do not have voting as a national holiday, you are paying to vote, fam. You understand that? When I sold cars, when I voted, whenever I went to vote, that's time I did not spend with a customer making commission. If you're a salary worker, you took time off to vote for what? That's what the professional managerial class don't understand. So when we told you guys, stop wasting your time voting for these war criminals, it is quite literally wasting your time. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you, instead of making breakfast, you waste that time voting, that is a net negative in your life that you should not be wasting it on at all. Even if voting is easy, you should not do it unless it addresses your material concerns, advances your political interests. And that's why the bullshit that they do, where they say, and this is what Sam Cedar does too, the vote is not your feeling, the vote is not your vibe. Nigga, you guys see how they talk about something that's completely different than material reality. That's what happens when you have no Marxist or socialist analysis in your politics. You start talking about shit that's completely irrelevant, like feelings and shit. Yes, I'm upset at what Joe Biden did to my family, to our community. But at the end of the day, my feelings had nothing to do with that. I'm looking at the material reality where the guy who wrote the crime bill and the bankruptcy bill has no reason to get my vote. How is this a concept the professional managerial class don't understand? I will never understand myself. It shows the deep disconnect that they talk about other shit like values and feelings. See, Joe, are you voting with your values and feelings? Probably are. But you're voting out of your interest. We vote out of our interest at the end of the day, either whether you can describe it or not. You're voting for your interest. But anyway, you can continue to that.
But if you don't. This is what makes these liberals such unreliable allies. Because if you don't need health care, then whether or not the party you are willing to team up with is advocating for it doesn't matter, because you have it independent of your party advocating for it. So let's apply their logic. So if I went out and voted for Joe Biden, how does that help me when he's funding the police that kill black people?
Exactly.
How does that help me? How does that help my family that's in the military when he sends them over to places to go kill other? How does that help them? How does it help my ancestral family? Because I'm sure I have family in Africa, in Somalia, for example. How does that help them when I vote for Joe Biden and then he has the military over there bombing in some? What is that? What am I getting out of voting for him when he's not my interest?
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. But and they spoke about this. You see how George is talking about this? You noticed they talked about this in the earlier clip on Morning Joe. Yep. The intro clip on Morning Joe, the lady said we're living in an era of purity, because she was trying to explain the graph that showed people saying, what's more important, you voting with a person with your values or you voting for a person that wins? It was 91% voting your values, and they don't understand that.
Yep.
They don't get that. Well, that's saying that people are voting their values because they need their values or the things they need executed. What am I voting for a person that's winning that doesn't do the things that I need to have happen?
Yep.
What does that do for me? To that point. But anyway, it's infuriating. It took me, it tracked me off of the point.
And the thing is, CJ, the fact that, and I'm sure there are a ton of people who listen to this who inherently know what we're talking about. But what does it say that we have to explain this to the professional managerial class?
Right.
You guys see how we got like even us explaining this is weird. Like we got to explain to you people that we vote for our material conditions. I had to explain to people. That's why the votes debate was so weird. I had to explain to you why I'm not voting for Jim Crow Joe. Like what? How do I even explain that? Like it's so weird to do. You know what I mean? It's so weird that we even had to put this into words. That you guys are so out of touch that we had to explain to you guys why we can't vote for people who harm our lives. Like, is that really a concept that I have to explain to you?
Right.
Anyway, I'll read the super chat just because it's very relevant. Janice, thanks for 499. She said, votes have value. They should never be assumed, expected, or extorted through fear. The only vote anyone has the right to criticize is their own. That's actually a very powerful way to put it.
That is great.
That's why voting shaming don't even inherently make sense to me because like whenever a liberal comes to me like, oh, you cost Hillary the election because you voted Green Party, I'm like, I start laughing like that's a great thing. That's exactly the plan. How am I as a third party voter supposed to feel bad about that? Like that don't make sense to me. I don't understand. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass to you. We just rambling now.
Yeah. Let me just read some other comments here. Ryan Knight chimed in on this tweet. We aren't voting for Joe Biden. So if you're really worried about Trump, then you better vote for Cornell.
Yeah.
Wes, I'm loving the Cornell people coming back like that. And here's one from Brianna, who actually shouts out Cornell too, even though, we know that, Marianne's her friend, but she does shout out Cornell in this instance, and she's right. If your goal is breaking the corporate duopoly, that's our goal, and that should be anyone's goal because the duopoly is hurting every single person except for people in the 1%. Then voting for Dr. Cornel West is the most strategic choice, aka the chess move. George Takei. You know what? You know what's a better chess move than what you're saying, George? It's getting the Green Party to 15%.
Yep.
That's a better chess move for the worker. And Nick, we're about chess moves for the worker because they love using this chess analogy. They love using that. But we're for chess moves for the worker. Now, there is another tweet I want to go to with George Takei, but go ahead. I want you to chime in.
I'll just quickly add to that. There's a new wave going on because the Bernie industrial complex, the Justice Democrats and Progressive Democrats really don't realize how much they fucked up. They really don't realize how much they fucked up. Now there are a lot of liberal Bernie supporters, but now after seeing the project, and I'm talking about people like myself, like people who are hard-headed, right? After seeing the project fail 2 times in devastating fashion, third-party activists are not having any tolerance for bullshit anymore. Like, you guys remember the Holly Hawkins wing? The people like, I know Republicans are bad or worse. Oh, come on, man, there's no apologizing for our third-party activists no more. Nigga, we are right with Dr. Cornel West. We supported the Green Party. If you're upset, kick rocks. And I love that energy. There should be at no point
Me too.
where you feel like you have to explain your vote to a 2-party duopoly. You know what I mean? If you're talking to a 2-party duopoly, you owe them no explanation. But anyway, CJ, I'll pass to this one. This one's funny because this tweet right here, George Takei got fucking obliterated for. And this one I'm very excited to go over because the same way we went over the NATO story, this tweet getting destroyed the way it did shows the narrative is crumbling, okay? Like we see, just click anyone's tweet so you can see how many replies. I want to show you guys the ratio on this tweet. So he has 25K likes, but he got a lot of followers, and a lot of those are liberal bots. But look at this, 14. That's a ratio, fam. Yeah. 14,000 people replied, thousands of quote tweets, and he got bot farmed likes. Like we explained before, how the blue check liberal celebrities like John Legend, they did dogpile me before.
Yeah.
It was exposed they're part of this group, and they get popped up by liberal bots. They are popped up by the algorithm. They all share retweet. But despite all that, he was getting destroyed. And that's what ratio mean, because you can have all these fake likes all you want, But is anyone defending you in the comments? Is anyone saying good job? No. Despite the likes, there were 14,000 comments of your ass getting roasted. So that's what ratio is. So everyone has an echo chamber. So you're always gonna get likes because you have an echo chamber. But what do people think about you? Do anyone feel positively about it to comment? No, the people who feel strongly about it are the people who tell you full shit. That's what George Takei's tweet was. Because the Ukraine narrative is falling apart. CJ, I don't know if you want to present it, but I'll pass it to you if
you can. I can read it. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because after seeing the polls that show that Americans are turning against the Ukraine war funding, even a shocking amount of Democrats. You know what I mean? Like the number of Democrats that oppose Ukraine funding, I covered it. It's 40%. That is horrible. Like that's horrible, fam. Like we are bombarded by the vocal NATO left, but the combined not sure and don't support is 40% Democrat. That's not a bad number. The same way I say that 3 out of 10 Republicans supporting defund the police, despite the narrative, is really good. Like 3 out of 10 Republicans supporting defund the police, nigga, I take that all fucking day, fam. That's like the Ukraine thing. So people like George Takei is panicking. Let alone when you look at the independent and Republican numbers for the Ukraine war funding. So now they got to say stuff like this. You have videos, and I think I want to interject the video after that. I'll read this. Got the fits.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
you have people in Maui, Hawaii, like we get $700, but you guys are sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, including paying their salaries of government officials. So now the liberal bot farms had to retaliate to this. So this is what George Takei have. He says, pro tip, whenever you see someone saying we could be spending that money on X instead of sending it to Ukraine, it probably originated from and was amplified by Russians. So how long has it been? 7 to 8 years? It's been 7 to 8 years, and they're still doing it, fam. They're still doing the thing where if you criticize foreign policy, you're a Russian plant. So and this show how disgusting liberal culture is, because despite Hawaiians and despite people struggling, they seeing Ukrainians being funded more. Now liberals are attacking people who seeing their government abandon them as traitors to their country. And Glenn Greenwald had a great tweet. I'm gonna see if I can find it here later.
I have it.
Oh, you have it?
Yeah.
All right, so you might pull this. If you can find it, you might pull his tweet up.
Yeah. You mean the one to response? Because I have because
I'll pass it to you.
Yeah, Glenn Greenwald has been going off. Like I've seen like at least 3 quote tweets from Glenn Greenwald on just George alone. So I got a couple. Here's Glenn right here. I can read Glenn.
This one I
want to.
let me read this. I'll pass it to you after I read this one because this is a point I want to make.
Go ahead.
This is a great point by Glenn. The massive spending on war and weaponry impedes domestic progress and erodes Americans' quality of life. That idea has been a staple of the left liberal politics for decades. And it was MLK's key point in his April 4th, 1967 speech. So yeah, MLK and the left, they used to speak about military spending and how it siphons support from social spending at home. And another point I made in response to this tweet, and I'll pass to you, CJ, is this is why we do propaganda report, fam. Like, yeah, George Takei may be a propagandist, but there are a lot of these liberals out here that have been radicalized by CNN and MSNBC. What do you guys think happens to a populace that has to sit through these Ukraine segments that we show you on our show, and they watch this shit every day? Mm-hmm. That shit has an effect. It fries the brain of the liberal mind to the point where they completely abandon the simple values that MLK used to preach about regarding militarism. That people on the left believe on militarism. But anyway, so y'all know you have a few more things you want to ask, so I'll pass to you. And
let me just I guess I can finish the tweet. It says now liberals scorn this view as Kremlin propaganda, and I love it's so important for somebody like a Glenn Greenwald. I think he has like 1 million subscribers at least to do this type of stuff because imagine if George was able to say this, Nick, without anybody retorting it at the
That's why
levels
they
that
hate
Glenn
Glenn.
Greenwald is so important. That's why they hate him. Because look how many views just Glenn. So we had at least almost 500,000 eyes have seen this already. So that is what is so important. But I'll go to a couple of other responses. I think you had a response too. I'm not sure if I saved it, but here's Danny Haifong, another. He was just appeared at UN, and we haven't even had a chance to cover the story of him in his speech when he went to the UN, and he's about talking about Ukraine. But he also says this. Danny Haifong says, "Pro tip." Scott Ritter also, and I have his tweet. He chimes in on this too. Pro tip: whenever someone says, "quote," you're a Russian for wanting to use billions of your dollars on X instead of sending it to Ukraine, end quote, it's probably originated from and amplified by neocons. Be smarter right there. I know for some of you it's hard. Look at George. God, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
I love, and everyone's mocking him for that line because that line exemplifies liberal smugness and classism. Like George Takei really believes he's smarter than us, CJ. Like George Takei really believes he's smarter. Like you see how Scott Ritter mocks that into.
You can read this one if you want.
Because it's absurd that he thinks he's smarter than people. And that's what that line suggests. But Scott Ritter says, pro tip, whenever George Takei opines on matters of geopolitical consequence, especially Ukraine, remind yourself he is just an actor who played Lieutenant Sulu on Star Trek and is not an expert on national security. Be smarter out there. I know some of you, it's hard. Yeah, these people really believe, like, he's just an actor, but George Takei really believes that he's some sort of enlightened political thinker that knows something that we do not.
But where is he getting his information in his head? Like, where do you think he's getting some sort of like knowledge about something that we don't get?
Times to CNN. He reads the New York Times and CNN. He thinks that's fact, fam. That's why we're the most propagandized country. Because I talked to my friends at BetBeat Media, Kareem Batesh, and they live in China, fam. And they explain, like, bro, everyone in China know if you watch Chinese media, you're getting the message of the state. So they watch it knowing that it's coming from the state. People like George Takei watches Rachel Maddow thinking that shit is real news, even though courts have literally filed against Rachel Maddow and said that she's not real news. She does entertainment. That's the difference. That's the misleading. People who live in state media countries know where the message is coming from. People think that Rachel Maddow is a legitimate journalist, and that's people like John Cusack and George Takei.
So John Cusack has been going off. You tell me what your opinion is, because I'm seeing shit libs kind of going off the range. They're kind of like getting more mad. Is it that they're seeing that nobody's falling for their shit libbery? Nobody's falling for their vote shaming? Like, what do you think it is?
To your point, I'm glad that people like John Cusack and George Takei exist, because we use the word unhinged a lot, right? We explained to you guys how the Democratic Party is unhinged. Their policy, their strategy, their messaging is unhinged. Do you guys think there's no consequence of that? So if the party and the propaganda is unhinged, then their supporters become unhinged. That leads you to people like John Cusack and George Takei. They become warped. Do you guys think that Trump supporters and Republicans are the only one who lose their mind in propaganda? I have witnessed this. Like the Democratic Party, and Glenn Greenwald talk about this all the time. We have openly seen them shift into the party of war. Like, you can make the argument they always been that, but you can make the argument before they've been that out of deception. You know what I mean? They will pretend to be against it, but they will actually secretly do some shit. And not even deception anymore. They openly the CIA party. They openly the military party. But I'll read Glenn's tweet. I think it's a good one. And Glenn says, affluent, faded, aging, forgotten movie stars are just jury Democrats. So pretty much all these washed up movie stars, they're just Democrats now. And there's nothing to say about it other than how boring, predictable, and how cliche it is. And that's what they are. They're just Democrats.
Yeah. Let me. So let's just read what the conflict was. So Glenn Greenwald minded his own business, and all Glenn and his, or actually it's his show's Twitter account. He just puts out his normal video that's promoting his episode. This one happened to be this though. Quote, I know it sounds like a sensational claim, but it's not. It's the only rational conclusion you can reach. And he's talking about this. These news outlets lie on purpose. I'm sorry, I got a pop-up. I know you can't see it. They are there to lie, to validate the liberal proclivities of their viewers, to show their viewers they are willing to lie for the Democratic Party. And to the point that of this, what they're saying, and you said something similar to this, how they couldn't even show Donald Trump's news conference or something he did because they had already riled their audience up where they don't want to see that stuff. So now they can't even do regular news shit like show a president doing some presidential type of thing. So he puts this out, just a regular clip. John Cusack, Captain Save a Democrat Party, had to come in and say all of this. And I'll speed it up. Some of us challenge corporate news bias regularly on the merits. This is the professional managerial class trying to say there's a good way of doing challenging media, then there's a bad way. On the merits, we call out the groveling and deference to power, the cowardice of access journalism. So you were talking about the entire CNN, entire MSNBC, along with Fox News. But then there's this man, he's referring to Glenn Greenwald, a man who routinely graced the airwaves of fish stick fascist Tucker Carlson show. Did Glenn condemn these fascist assholes for terrorizing Ruby Freeman? Is not a coherent position to hate. It's not a coherent position to hate Democrats more than fascists. But here's Glenn, still chasing his great white whale, Moby Dick.
Drunk.
Yeah, and I don't get it's so jumbled too. But I do want to zero in something else before the main, not one of the main things of this tweet, which is so ridiculous, because RBN calls him out. RBN calls him out and says, "Hey, you're shielding for the Democratic Party," and I'll show you the tweet because, and we started this because RBN I think was the first one who quote tweeted him here and got a response. But anyway, this is what RBN said. I guess we were the actual first. Wow, this Nick, it was only three when we. Yeah, it was only three. It was only three when we did it. My bad. Let me go to. Anyway, RBN calls him out. I don't see it, but RBN calls him out for his tweet, and then he says, Nick, he's not a Democratic shield. He's been a Bernie progressive since I was alive. Yeah, I was trying to find it. Yeah, I was trying to find. I can find it. But how is he saying he's not a Democratic shield when right here, this is the part I was getting to, he's saying it's not coherent, Nick. It's not a coherent argument to hate the Democrat more than fascists, and we're saying Democrats are the fascists. This is the Democratic shielding part. If you didn't understand the point that was being made, John Cusack, and I'll just go to our page. But what did you have to say on that? Even if you don't have the tweet, I'll bring it up as soon as I find it.
Yeah, actually, I should probably I'll leave here in a few minutes.
Your thing is about to cut out.
Yeah, and I actually got a little bit over my time anyway. But John, I saw the John Cusack thing. He had me blocked for a while. He part of there are a lot of people in the Bernie industrial complex like John Cusack, TYT, Anna Kasparian, David Doe, Mike Figueredo. They all blocked us, guys. Like these people are the white saviors, the people who cannot stand people to their left, the people that they claim they're fighting for. Poor Black and working class people tell them that they're wrong, that they are not leaders of our movement. They cannot stand our arguments. That's why I literally had to ask for a screenshot because I saw that he was attacking they replied to RBN, but he already has it all blocked, so I don't really have much to say because I haven't seen a lot of this. But yeah.
All right, so this is the tweet that Nick was blocked from. So Nick asks, "Hey, can you show me the tweet? You know, a screenshot for the block." And you know what that means? It means that he was blocked by John Cusack, and if you can just show him the tweet that everybody's talking about. So the main account shows him the tweet, and I don't know why I can't. You know what? John Cusack must have deleted the tweet because he had quote tweeted us, but then he began to get ratioed. He began to get ratio. So yeah, it looks like he deleted it. Yeah, he deleted it. Actually, let me see if I can find it because Rome did a video on it, and maybe I'll show Rome's video. Let me see where Rome. Okay. Yeah, he deleted the tweet because he was getting ratio. So here it goes here. So John Cusack had a tweet and he deleted it because he was starting to get a lot of people go after him. So I can't show you now because he deleted it. But John Cusack went after us, went after Glenn Greenwald, and like a coward, he blocked all of us and deleted the tweet. But let's listen to what Rome says to John Cusack, the tweet that he deleted because he was starting to get ratio.
Now that, you know, real activists have your attention before you block us all, I wanted to talk on something that's,
I'm out, Phyllis.
you know,
I'm out, everybody.
But for some reason in your mind, you think is a great thing. You claim to be a Bernie Sanders progressive before we was born. You haven't moved left of Bernie Sanders in 30 years? And you gonna openly say that? You're gonna admit that to the people? Now, what does it mean to be a Bernie Sanders progressive, right? Or we believe this, we believe that. But what have you actually gotten done in the 30-something years of you supporting Bernie Sanders, right? What have been delivered to the people? Bernie Sanders supporters, so the same Bernie Sanders that's funding war, that don't care of an outlook of where the money is going and whatnot, right? While our people are starving, right? The same man who's weak when it actually comes to fighting for Medicare for all, but when it comes to fundraising, he's the fucking champion. The same man that just took $200,000 of our money that we donated to him and put it into his nonprofit. That's what a Bernie Sanders progressive is, right? You know what being a Bernie Sanders progressive is really about? It isn't about fighting for nobody. You don't care about the kids at the border. You don't care about black people. You don't care about nobody but your damn self. You care about your image to make yourself look better. Because when all the shit goes down, you're like, well, I tried. Look, I voted for Bernie Sanders. But you don't actually have the balls to fight. So you use this as a scapegoat. We all see it and we all know it. And people are tired of people like you acting like you care. People are fed up. But what does it mean to be a Bernie Sanders supporter? It just means that you care about how people look at you. But you're never going to fight because all those years, the generations Bernie Sanders been in power, where have that gotten us? Poor, evicted, or killed. Either did, John.